Yeah, so we talked. Yeah. It is hard. It is weird. Yeah, it's very unusual. Good. Yeah.
We're talking about oh my God.
Yeah, we'll go to this table here.
It's funny because Robert said, we'll start right at 2. And I thought, oh my God, here he comes. Oh my God, he's got his kids. And this
There was still quite a few people getting parking down there.
said it's kind of like where I live. Yeah, this is Steamboat time. And he said, it'll be starting at the start. When it is the end. And everybody leaves. When does it start? When people get there? No, when everybody gets here. When does it end? When everybody leaves. Shorts and no jacket.
And there you go. They grow good together like that.
That's a nice skirt. I don't know.
Well, sort of. Hello. I have no words either. I can get through this day without get through it, buddy.
Yep.
Okay. Soon. There's still cars.
Got about 15 people in line right now.
Really? That's cool. Just say the word. They're still coming in, Mr. Bob. All right. I got to ask my sister where the chocolate is. Damn it. Hold on. Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but she hates it.
You collected reindeer?
Where'd all your hair go? Not paying attention. Where'd all your hair go?
All those kids built the house.
Yep.
Hi. Good to see you.
Hey.
Oh, that's off.
Good.
I'm just going to hand them to a person. They're going to pass them around.
Yeah.
Go down as individual votes. I'm just going to pick a person. I'm going to tell them the instructions.
I'm not going to eat that. My own heart.
Okay, so we're gonna hand out the candy with candy next to you. Halloween, where you just click on
Through Alaska time. There's Donna. We don't have enough chairs. Well, oh well, it is what it is. Yeah.
You were 30 in the old days.
Oh yeah. Yes, I was. I was furry. Hey, do me a favor. Tell me who you are. I will. Yes. Josh, do you know who Lisa Talbot is? Oh, wait. You see her? She was over here. Okay. All right. Thanks. You ready? I gotta find my wall. Yeah, I have about 30. No. You'll get a chance. Oh yeah. Cars all over the damn place.
I recognize you.
You do.
Mr. X City Manager.
XX. Yeah.
XX City Manager. Hey, Robert. I'm social distancing. And I won't stay long because I'm 666. But shall I grab? I'm going to take a little walk with these guys. Shall I grab Tyler?
No, Liz has got him.
Liz has got him? Okay.
Hello.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay, Deb. Yeah. What? It's a butt dial. It is a butt dial. You ready? Is this on? If everybody wants to take a seat, we're going to get started in a minute. No heckling, Colette. Is that good? If folks would please take a seat, we're going to start in 1 minute. We're going to need some crowd control over here, I can see. Okay, can everybody hear me? In the back, can you hear me? Great. Welcome everybody to the celebration of life for Roberta Highland. It's really an honor. Woo-woo! Thanks for coming out on this beautiful Hummer Day. It's really an honor to be up here and have Robert ask me to speak a few words. I really want to start with a moment of silence so we can reflect on Roberta's life, think about our lives, think about the intersection we've had with Roberta and what all that means. Thank you. When I think about Roberta, I get a really strong sense of place, and it really fills me with enormous gratitude to live in this rich place we call home and to have people like you as part of this community. And to me, when I think about Roberta, she really defined community to me, and she gave back so much more than she took. And I think it's accurate to say that the lens that she saw the world was a lens of service. And that's what she did. She dedicated herself to that. And she did it with two ideals that I really value. And those were passion and humor. And She never called me Bob. It was always Bab. Bab. And I learned over the years to understand the inflection in that. And sometimes she was pissed at me and sometimes she was happy with me, but I learned to understand what she meant very quickly. And, you know, when Robert asked me to speak, I thought all the memories and all the interactions I had with Roberta, and it was the first time I met her that really stood out. And it was early. I had just gotten started with Cooking Like Keeper, and it was early 1996. And we were doing presentations and workshops throughout the watershed so I could learn the people in the landscape. And of course, we did some presentations in Homer, and we were doing a presentation at the Methodist Church. And it was a nice crowd, and got through the presentation. We were doing some question and answer. And if there was 20 questions, 15 of them came from this one little woman sitting in the front wearing pastel and glasses. And I started to realize that this woman was going to play a big role in my life. And then towards the end of the question and answer, her hand shot up again. And she said, "How are you going to end capitalism?" And I had this kind of out of body experience. I was like floating above the room, and I thought, what the hell did I do? How did I get here? And all that I could think to say was, I'm going to work with you to solve that. And we tried for 30 years. I'm not sure we got there, but it was never boring. And we've got quite a few people that have things to say today. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Talbot right now, and she's going to lead us, and then we'll work our way through the schedule. Thanks again for being here.
It is amazing to look out at this crowd and see how many of the Homer circles all collide and overlap in this one person. And even the sky weeps today. I'm Lisa Talbot. I know many of you from my former role as the pastor of Homer United Methodist Church, but that is not where I met Roberta. Roberta was not a churchy person, not a believer in an organized kind of way. Yet Roberta sensed that there was something out there, something bigger that was behind all the grandeur and majesty around us. That's why it's fitting today that we gather in this cathedral of nature, with the field beneath our feet, with the embrace of the trees around us, and the misty mountains as our backdrop. As I said, I didn't meet Roberta at any church activity. No, I met her in the community, boots on the ground, at rallies and protests and marches. I heard her voice raised in advocacy for marginalized people. I heard her passion for preservation and conservation. I heard her love, her deep, deep love for this physical world so filled with wonder. Roberta's passion for the environment reminds me of an author of one of my favorite books called Church of the Wild by Victoria Loors. Loors writes, "Once upon a time, all humans knew their lives, their food, their survival, their sense of meaning and kinship with gods or God was connected with all their relations, the hawks and the soil and ferns and mosquitoes. Like all the other wild creatures, they belonged to the land and they knew it. They were untamed and self-willed and listened to their own intrinsic authority. They were part of a grand conversation, a relationship of reciprocity and respect, connecting them with all other beings and elements of life. Untamed, self-willed, listening to her own intrinsic authority. That sounds an awful lot like Roberta. She saw the connections in nature to the land, the horses, the wild creatures, the beauty. And when she felt her life as she wanted it drawing to a close, she gave herself back to the nature she loved so much. Those who walk the edges between the worlds are often called mystics. And Roberta's sense of the sacredness of nature reminds me of some of the female mystics, like Saint Hildegard, who called God the greening force. There was another mystic many centuries later, a little girl named Opal, who lived in a logging town in Oregon at the turn of the last century, who kept a journal that was an ode to her love of nature. I'd like to read you one of her poems, and I invite you to open yourself to your sense of sacredness, using whatever words work for you, be it nature, creation, God, the universe, love. You may close your eyes or you may turn your gaze to some of the beauty around us as you listen. This poem was written by Opal Whiteley, who was just 5 years old when this was recorded. Morning is glad on the hills. The sky sings in blue tones. Little blue flowers are blooming early now. I do so like blue. It is glad everywhere. The earth sings in green. I stopped by some grand fir trees to pray. When one looks up at the grand trees growing almost up to the sky, one always does have longings to pray. Beloved friends and neighbors, when you lift your eyes to the hills, when you're inspired by the majesty of this place, when you feel the awe of the beauty around us, remember Roberta. Remember her love and passion for this place and for all of nature. And may that love live in your hearts and inspire you, like Roberta, to be an outspoken advocate for the people and places in need of our love and care. Thank you.
You ready, Robert?
Yeah, okay.
I don't have many heroes in this world, but Robert Archibald's one of my heroes. I love you, Robert, and I think I speak for everybody out here. We love you. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Uh-oh, it's not the right piece of paper. I've been kind of busy lately. I haven't really reflected on what I was going to say, so I'm just going to say something. Everything you hear is true. Some of the names have been changed to protect the innocent. You all heard how Roberta and I met, and it's true. Dollar Day at Alyeska. Right here. I said, you poor thing, you can't see anything down there. Why don't you get on my shoulders? He said, you're crazy. Well, after another beer, I asked her again, and she said, if you're crazy enough to ask, I'm crazy enough to climb up there. And that's how this whole 47 years of somewhat marital bliss started out. And she said, I'm going to go down the Yukon River after I hike Chilkoot Pass, and I'm looking for someone to go with me. And I said, look no further. That's how it happened. That woman was dynamic, strong, and had a will that would slay me. When she got pointed in a direction she wanted to go, she went. When she first got here, there was a Korean cattle company that was going to free-range cattle up Fritz Creek drainage. And there are some people here today that caught wind of that and put up a big battle. And as a result of that, the Anchor River Fritz Creek critical habitat came about. And there was a great group of people that influenced the decision on that. So she always would say, well, I believe in the 4 E's. And that's what I have on this piece of paper: ethics, economy, energy, and the environment. The environment around here is something to behold. And she fought for it. We've been here a good long time, and she loved it. And every time she said, another day in paradise. Well, there's things going on today that kind of upset her, but it's a growing town. So we all have to be vigilant on how we grow. Otherwise, it'll get away from us. You know, she had a sense of humor, too. When she said she wanted to float the Yukon River, she had to go get a canoe. And her first trip on a body of water was down the Portage Creek. And nobody told her there was a bunch of rocks in that, and it was really cold. Well, she put a lot of dents in that new canoe. Anyhow, we managed to hike that Chilkoot Pass, and we got over to Whitehorse. And I had a motorhome at the time, and we talked to some young people that were going to drive a motorhome to Dawson City for us. So we got the canoe off of that thing, and they're shoving us off because they want to get going because they filled that motorhome with beer. And Roberta turned around and she said, "You've done this before, haven't you?" And I said, "No, it's the first time." You know, but even better than that, I was working out in the inlet, and she didn't like airplanes at all. She didn't understand what kept them in the air. So she called me on the boat, and she said, "Well, I'm up here in Palmer with the 2 dogs, and I've pitched a tent, and there's this wonderful flight instructor over here at the airport that said, I can fix that phobia that you have if you just give me a chance. I'll teach you why airplanes stay in the air." And she said, "You know what? I'm going to take flying lessons." The first day in a 152, the 2 of them were driving around the Palmer Airport in this airplane, just the taxiways. And this instructor said, "Okay, are you ready to take off now?" Guess what Roberta said? She said, "Oh, no. I'm really happy just driving around this airport today." So that was her first day in that airplane. Well, the next day they took off. So at any rate, she did learn how to fly. She did solo. She was the chief pilot of this family, and she reminded me of that every time I got in an airplane. We did end up buying an airplane. To those of you that don't know it, we did fly around for a while. In fact, we flew one outside. We had people in Girdwood taking bets that one of us was not going to make it. And it wasn't that we were going to crash the airplane or anything, that one of us was going to kick the other one out of that airplane. Not really. She was a chief pilot. She could land and take off really well. I'd stress relieve the undercarriage of that airplane every time I tried to land it. But I think one of the most memorable things in that airplane, we were flying, we flew the highway down south, and we got in some weather coming out of some town in Canada. We should have gone up the Liard River Valley. Instead, we flew up over the mountains there, and we got kind of socked in, so we turned around to come back to wherever that town is that's got all the signs, you know that one in Canada. Yeah, whatever it is anyhow. So then there was Scud coming over those mountains too, and we kind of went, uh-oh. She said, "I got to land on the highway. That's what we're going to do." And I'm going kind of, okay. So we did a kind of roundabout, and we looked down there, and there was a circle of oil drums that were painted orange. So that means there's a windsock in the middle too. And I said, look at that. There's a little airport right there. She said, that's where we're going. Well, she greased that thing in there and got up to the end of that sod strip, shut that plane down. And she went, oh, what are we going to do now? And I looked out the window and there was a flashing beer sign and a little building across the street. I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going across the street to have a beer. We survived that episode and we managed to go around various places outside and make it back to Alaska. And nobody won the bet. So, you know, there's lots of stories about Roberta, the Conservation Society, Planning Commission. What else? The Equestrian Association. My relationship with her. This place. 28 acres across the street, which are now part of the Moose Inc. Moose habitat into perpetuity. So it's all things that we decided to do together. And 47 years, I had a great time with that woman. There was probably several weeks out of that were a little bit rocky. But Hobo Jim did marry us at the top of Alyeska. And one of the things that he said was, you know, the oceans tend to kick up every little bit now and then. In fact, sometimes they truly get stormy, but they always come back to the calm. I found that very true with her. Because we never did have to go sleep in another bed. Although she may be way over on the other side. And she always liked horses and she always loved dogs. So we've always had a few of those around. There's evidence of this place. And it was a good way to live. And me being a sailor and her being a nurse, we decided that we didn't want to have kids. Being gone half the time. And her being a nurse that helped too many come into the world and going, my God, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but there's other people that need to speak. So, I will say one thing. This is testimony to the many people that she touched. So I thank you all for coming out. The sun's going to come out. Mother Nature, I never did get along with you. Yeah, I was always had to go through King Neptune, you know, and he gave me a little more slack. So thank you all for being here. So I'll turn it over back to Bob.
Well done. Very good, man. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. I learned a couple things there. Scares me thinking about Roberta flying.
I got one more too.
Come on up.
I almost forgot. And we really couldn't start this without everybody having a piece of chocolate. Has everybody got a piece of chocolate?
That tent over there. Ate a bunch of them. I just want you to know.
Oh, they ate them already.
Threw them under the bus. No, they did.
Yeah.
They did well.
They were pre-sweetened. Well, you know, one thing that Roberta did learn is that when she was appointed to the Planning Commission, when she was the president of the Conservation Society, when she was on the South Peninsula Service Area Board, she would always take a bag of Dove chocolate. And she would hand it out to everybody and say, look it, we're going to start this meeting feeling good. So everybody open up your little chocolate and take a bite. And that's what that chocolate's all about. A little chocolate to sweeten your soul. So that's all I got.
I better get some. Ah, there you go. Thanks, Robert. Is Mary around? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Mary Shepard Fries, and Roberta's name for me was Mary. That was how she called me, but I have something I've written about my dear friend. In 1985, my then husband, Michael Shepard, was working together with a group of others on establishing the Anchor River Frisk Creek critical moose habitat. Roberta was one of the driving forces in getting that done. He asked me, "Do you know Roberta Highland?" "I'm not sure," I replied. He said, "Oh, you would know Roberta." Okay. Jump into the future, another few years to 1990. And there came a time when Susan Arndt enticed me to join the newly formed home health department at the hospital as a member of the nursing crew. As she was talking it up, she asked, "Do you know Roberta?" And I said, well, I'd heard her name in conjunction with Rich Creek Habitat, but I wasn't sure if I'd ever met her. Once again, I heard, well, she's pretty memorable. Susan and Roberta had started the department at South Peninsula Hospital in February of 1990. Home health services prior to that were provided by Peninsula Home Health in Soldotna, and Susan and Roberta decided to bring it home and make it a new department of our local hospital. Together, they completed all of the certification paperwork in record time. Anyone who knew Roberta is well aware she was no stranger to hard work, and if she was determined to get something done, it got done. Several months later, in June of 1990, I joined the two of them. Roberta, the department director, was on vacation when I started there, and when she got back, I soon learned why she was so memorable. She blew into the office that first day and was on a tear catching up from being gone. Her energy was so intense and her approach so direct, I was mildly terrified. At first, she was not sure about me at all. Roberta and I could not be more different in the way we worked. I loathed the paperwork, and she was a master of detail and organization. My desk looked like a tossed salad, and hers was set up for maximum efficiency. After about a week of sizing each other up, we started to develop a mutual respect as our similarities began to outweigh our differences. We both saw quality patient care as non-negotiable. We both liked to work hard. We had a similar sense of humor. We became fast friends and occasional ski buddies in those early days. As our department grew from the original three, not everyone found Roberta easy to work with, as she was direct and demanding, but she was always fair and kind. The term that comes to mind that I believe sums her up is uncompromising. She was determined that the patient care came first and care we delivered would be of the best quality. She was uncompromising to the very end about her values and what mattered to her. Human dignity, the environment, justice were all non-negotiable. It was that same uncompromising spirit that made her leave the department. One day, it was announced that we would be getting a computer. Yes. Any of you that knew Roberta were well aware of her disdain for technology. When the computer came in, she was quick to submit her resignation. She maintained that rejection of technology right to the end. No cell phone, computer, or social media for her. Instead, she held office hours from 12 to 2 on her landline, and folks knew that's when and how she could be reached. She used those of us with technology to support her myriad causes. I can't count the number of times she would have me send something to Robert's email or cell phone. Often she would have me print something out for her to read or to search for her on the internet for information. Somehow this backdoor use of technology was considered legal in her mind. All right. I will always remember her last day of work. Many people will just phone it in when they know they're leaving a job. She worked hard her last day like it was any other, making sure everything was caught up and the person that followed her had a clean and organized start. I think that says a lot about her character. Though she left the department, she was always a nurse at heart. Her concern for the community continued as she joined the Hospital Service Area Board, where she served for many years. We frequently went to nonprofit fundraisers together with our husbands, and she would bid on art to donate to the patient rooms at the hospital. She could not bear the idea of her neighbors and friends staring at a blank wall. The generosity of Robert and Roberta is well known, and this is just one of the many ways they both gave to our town. She also was quick to help friends in need. On more than one occasion, she jumped in as a friend's health declined and was a major support as they transitioned from this life. Many people will remember her as the environmentalist, the horsewoman, the community planner, the philanthropist, and the life of any party. In truth, I will remember her as these things too, but first and foremost, she was my fellow nurse and dear friend. With a heart as big as the outdoors she so dearly loved and protected. Her compassionate heart touched many, and for that she will never be forgotten. Happy trails, my friend.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Going to ask Pam to step up. And while you do, Roberta's aversion to technology was legendary. And a few years ago, my brother-in-law was flying a drone over here. And I looked at this picture in the program of Roberta walking through the fireweed, and she loved those trails so much. And a drone flying over her head while she was walking on her trails was not permitted. And so she lit into my brother-in-law and let him have it. And I'm sure she went home, and Robert, I don't know if she told you about this, but she started to feel bad. So she put out a bush line on KBBI to apologize. And her sign off when she apologized was from Shorty.
I'm Pam. I was lucky that Roberta and I used to do a lot of walking on the 28 acres over there, and walking and talking. And I don't really have stories, but I've just been struggling to find words to describe what I most appreciated and admired in Roberta. And I just want to touch on a few things. She was fearless and determined. She was caring and generous, and she was passionate and genuine. Her friends who did downhill skiing with her called her the cannonball because she didn't care about going slaloming back and forth. She'd just point her skis straight downhill and shoot down as fast as she could possibly go. And I thought there was nothing that frightened Roberta and nobody that intimidated her. But then I heard she was afraid of flying, which Robert has talked about, but it didn't surprise me how she handled it, which of course was to earn a pilot's license. And Robert did too. And they bought an airplane and flew all the way to Southern California and Minnesota and back. And that, I think, says so much about Roberta, that she was determined. She wasn't going to be afraid of anything, and she knew how to conquer it. And she took that attitude to everything she did, to all of her activism. And I think everybody here, and a lot of people who wouldn't have chosen to come, knew about that fearlessness and determination. And not all of them, not the people who stood in her way, maybe knew what Mary was talking about, of her, how much she cared about other people. And it wasn't just caring about the great multitudes, but really about individuals. And to me, it seemed like, of course, Roberta was a nurse. How could Roberta not be a nurse? She told me how she became a nurse. She said she found out it was 3 years to get the training, and then she could get a job, and college was 4 years, so she became a nurse. But it was instantly a calling, and a lifelong calling. And she cared not only about all of her individual patients, but about healthcare in general, and worked to set up home health, as you've heard. And she also used that knowledge for outside of her job. Like she was very generous with her knowledge. So before Larry and I got old enough to qualify for Medicare, our healthcare program was Roberta Highland. And she never failed us. She, as far as I could tell, she was never wrong about any health issues. She was generous with her knowledge. She was generous with her time. She would help people who were new to town. If they needed a job, she'd help them get a job if they didn't know anybody, and that was my situation. She introduced me around to all the environmentalists and took me to the Christmas parties when I showed up, and I know I'm not the only one she treated that way. You wonder how she could possibly have time. Generous with her time, generous with her knowledge, and of course everybody knows she and Robert were generous with their money, living in a tiny house, but raising money and donating money for uncountable causes, and including buying and protecting land, including the 28 acres across from us. This fearlessness and determination and the caring and the generosity were all part of her passion, and other people have mentioned that too. She brought passion to everything she did, to skiing, to her love of nature, to horseback riding, to travel, to nursing, to the healthcare of people in this area and protecting Kachemak Bay. And she had a hunger for knowledge too. She would read a lot, and also when she talked to people, she was always drinking from us everything that we knew. She always wanted to know more about history, more about politics, more about science, more about whatever you knew. There was just this energy to know more and to do more all the time. But she never pretended to know anything she didn't know. She wasn't somebody who, if everybody was talking to something, would Google her cell phone to find out what they were talking about, not only because she hated cell phones and computers, but she had absolutely no pretensions. And if she didn't know something, she'd just ask. And she appreciated every individual for what their talents were and their gifts, but I never saw that she envied anybody. She just had this kind of purity about her, that an openness, that what you saw was what you got. And that's one of the things I most admired about her. I also know from the talks we had that she was a very astute observer of other people and of herself. She saw herself with a clarity that I think was really rare. And she knew that she could be difficult to live with. And I know that she loved Robert and deeply appreciated the years that they had together, and especially at the end when her health was failing and things were so difficult. But until the collapse of her health, I know she appreciated always another day in paradise, as Robert said, and she took life on her own terms, and her loss leaves a giant hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Nina, come on up. If Roberta was one pillar of the conservation community, Nina, you've certainly been another.
Well, I can tell Roberta's around. That misty cold is what she really liked. and my name was Nina. And anyway, I brought some fireweed in honor of Roberta. Fireweed's a tough plant that restores burned and disturbed lands. And for me, it's a symbol of that blazing spirit that was embodied within Roberta. Her fireweed spirit was a bold torch that led the way over the years when I was working with her on environmental issues. But she was also, in my mind, a caped crusader for the environment, a hero, tirelessly advocating for local and statewide conservation issues. She believed everything is connected and that protecting the earth and the life it sustained is the worthiest of causes. Her common sense environmental principles, inspired by Governor Jay Hammond, were her mantra. As Robert said, her 4 E's: environment, economy, energy, and ethics. Whatever the proposal, it had to keep the 4 E's in a healthy balance. And she had superpower, as some of you have noted. And that superpower was using the telephone, while mine was using the computer, which made us a good team. She was willing to talk to just about anyone about the issues she felt strongly about and give them the facts, always hoping to change minds. And as a former realtor and a licensed nurse, she saw the connections between planning and environmental health because she understood that healthy people require environmentally healthy communities. For over 30 years, Roberta coordinated groups of diverse people, working on projects or issues that improved the quality of life for Homer and fostered social and environmental change. In Roberta's passing, I've looked at Homer of today, and I'm reflecting on what it could have turned into if Roberta had not been crusading for a healthy environment with planning based on science and facts. She would often call me to ask about the background on an issue, and if I said, I believe, she would interrupt and say, I don't want to know what you believe. I want to know the facts. When you call me, when you have the facts. So just think a bit about how Homer would have turned out if we did not have a caped crusader out there working for the common good. Just visualize what sort of community Homer might have become if some of these projects that Roberta led the charge on had not been opposed by the community. In 1985, when she was co-chairing the Citizens for Responsible Land Use to create the Fritz Creek and Anchor River critical habitat areas, an important effort that protects the future drinking water potentially of for Homer, and also important steelhead and salmon fisheries. Now, Robert mentioned the Korean cattle thing, but I think it was you. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that was in 1987. So that was just about the same time she was working to save the critical habitat area. But to give you a little more detail of why she was so concerned about it, it was a Korean cattle corporation called Hanasamik, and they were proposing a massively huge cattle grazing operation that would have taken up 5,000 acres in the where the Red Meat Center was over on Fritz Creek. And some of the, and also 80,000 other acres, some of it in the Fritz Creek drainage, some of it in the Olson Mountain drainage, and elsewhere around the town. So you can just imagine Roberta thinking about safe drinking water for Homer, damage to streams, and other environmental concerns that would come from a massive, huge cattle grazing operation of that magnitude. And it luckily was not a popular issue and was not implemented. And also back in the 1980s, actually it was 1987, Trillium was a big corporation. It came in and tried to do a deal with the city of Homer that would have required the city to sign a 99-year lease before their proposal for redevelopment of the harbor area for mainly tourist stuff would be released. So Roberta, she led an effort to keep the city from signing the lease because of this strange non-disclosure arrangement. This could have been a giant financial boondoggle for the community of Homer, but luckily the public did not buy into this scheme. She was an early board member for the Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies. And look now how CACS has expanded and how much it does for Homer now with their outdoor programs for school kids, not only for Homer kids, but statewide. People bring their school groups down to Homer to go across the bay and do the tide pooling. And they're now also protecting 2 natural areas on the ridge and 1 across the bay. So that was a huge improvement in the area of environmental protection. In 1987, she became a board member of the Kachemak Bay Conservation Society. And later, upon my resignation as president, she was its president for over 20 years. And during this time, she was instrumental in a lot of successful KBCS campaigns. Everything from banning jet skis from Kachemak Bay and the state park, the creation of the Overlook Park below Baycrest, reversing the state's coal bed methane leases that would have caused us some problems with our drinking water here in Homer again, and improving management of the Karen Hornaday Park and Woodard Creek. In 1989, realizing the importance of saving valuable local habitat, she also became a founding member of the Kachemak Heritage Land Trust, KHLT. She and her husband, Robert, worked with a citizens group, and the Land Trust in 2004 to buy lands with the Forest Legacy Funds on Baycrest Hill, which became the Diamond Creek Recreational Area, which is now some of the best recreational trails for hiking and skiing right near town. So I think of Roberta every time I look across the bay because I'm not looking at a clear cut. In 1993, she worked with a statewide citizens coalition and lobbied the legislature to buy out the native timber interests over in Kachemak Bay for $22 million. And it saved 24,000 acres right smack in the heart of Kachemak Bay State Park, directly across from Homer. We would have been looking at a clear cut if it hadn't been for this effort. She also helped found the Jack Gist Recreational Area and the Kachemak Bay Equestrian Association, which developed horse trails and built a well-used horse park near the city limits. She's a great persuader. She talked me into donating to the purchase of the equestrian park, telling me, just think of your 2 alpacas as miniature horses. Okay, here's your money. It worked. Anyway, her positive approach to life was wrapped in compassion and concern for making life better for others. She was civically engaged through her seats on the Homer City Planning Commission, the South Peninsula Area Hospital Board, and was president of both the Kachemak Bay Conservation Society and the Equestrian Association. You could almost be guaranteed that Roberta was going to weigh in on environmental or civic issues being discussed on KBBI's local coffee table or the statewide Talk of Alaska program. And she would make the connections between protecting the environment and the benefits to public. And she always called me before those programs and said, this is what's on the program. You're going to call in, right? So most of the time I tried to call in. And she also made sure that the Economic Development Forum had information on renewable energy alternatives to oil and gas development, hoping that decision makers would perhaps get behind renewable energy. In 2010, she worked through KBCS on a Beluga Lake Wetlands Complex plan with our local Soil and Water Conservation District and Moose Incorporated to develop management guidelines for this important area right in the heart of Homer. She understood that there's connections between the environmental services of our wetlands that are provided, such as filtering out pollutants and absorbing floodwaters, the connection to health and safety of the community. So her advocacy for protecting wetlands no doubt helped inform public policy and protected much of that important wetlands complex right in the heart of Homer. All the numerous significant environmental issues I mentioned, and I know there's so many more that I haven't mentioned, Roberta worked on over the years. They have helped sustain our local way of life. She helped protect drinking water threatened by coal bed methane, and cow poo. Skiing and hiking trails provide community health benefits. The view was protected. Relative quiet in the bay was protected in world-renowned Kachemak Bay, which is really a place of quiet beauty. She understood the big picture of how all these issues are important to the health of the environment, our economy, as well as our health, safety, and well-being. I find myself very fortunate to have worked with Roberta for over 30 years on so many different environmental issues that were resolved in a way that made Homer a more resilient community, a place where you can really still eat the scenery. Homer and Alaska are fortunate to have had such a caring individual who energized, organized, and informed others to actively protect their environment and way of life. I hope you can see why Homer of today is so special and different, because one person's actions can make a huge difference, something we really need to keep in mind in today's world. Her depth of knowledge about so many issues and fields was recognized by South Peninsula Haven House when they selected her as a woman of wisdom, truly an appropriate honor for Roberta. Her achievements in conservation across the state were recognized in 2013 when Alaska Conservation Foundation selected her for the Celia Hunter Award for Outstanding Volunteer Contributions, a well-deserved, I lost a page. No, a well-deserved recognition. So Roberta, a self-proclaimed Pollyanna and eternal optimist, tirelessly worked for the betterment of life for all of us. And she fulfilled the position that I passed on to her as KBCS president for life, because she always said I was president for life. Well, she was actually the one that was president for life. And she was truly a caped crusader interested in shifting the commonly accepted paradigm from rampant development to responsible development, based on a commitment to a clean environment, renewable energy, public health, and her 4 E's. I will always remember her enthusiasm, concern for others, passionate love of the environment. For me, she will always be a super environmental hero. But beyond that, I will always be forever thankful that she was the one that convinced me that I needed a dog in my life. Thank you, Roberta, for leading me to my very first dog, Chipper. Tally ho, Roberta. We all miss you so much. Let's do that.
Thank you, Nina. Ralph? The cranes are going to come in for you. Watch that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. My name was Ralph. I don't have much to say here that hasn't already been said. Everybody has covered Roberta's life pretty well. I'm just going to speak a little bit here on the Kachemak Bay, the Hospital Service Area Board. Roberta's legacy with the hospital was when she would walk into the hospital, if she saw an empty wall or a wall with a nail sticking out of it, she knew that a piece of art needed to be placed there. She had the thought that art and healing work together. And so she would make sure that that empty wall got something on it. Her and Robert would frequently go to fundraisers and purchase pieces of art that ended up being at the hospital. The hospital has acquired quite a collection of art from them. Then, as mentioned here before, that she worked as a director of home health, and that was for a number of years. After she finished that, it wasn't too long after that that she became a member of the service area board. In 2008 to 2025, she serves on the service area board 17 years. And on 2008, there was a situation where the board was dissolved and a new board needed to be formed. And Roberta was instrumental in getting the new members to come in there, and she was very good at recruiting, of what she did for the next 17 years to recruit people to be on the service area board. She was more than a board member. She's a thought leader. In other words, she would take a look at a problem and figure out ways to solve it. And she would work with getting the borough to work with the hospital administration to get the things that needed to be done there. She serves as an advocate for when they had the service area board, service area changed the boundaries. She worked the phones, and she went to meetings and was able to get that set up. She was an advocate for MAP, the Community Health Coalition. She worked with it and became more of a help with them. She also makes sure that they got their funding, because the service area board was funding that. Another thing that she was really adamant about, and that is recycling. And she felt that the hospital was not taking care of their recycling that they should have. But there was a lot of stuff going to waste and on there. So she had determination and the power to get the hospital to take a look at that. And they developed a very good recycling administration up there. When she'd go to a meeting, she was well prepared. She read the packet thoroughly, and that could be anywhere from 30 to 60 pages. And then she would study the minutes for the last meeting and make sure that everything is correct and make any additions or corrections there. And she ended up being a very good for everybody else on the board, because she knew what was in that packet. She took her seat seriously. She did not back down shy away from difficult questions. And she kind of challenged authority. And over the years, the 17 years of working there, I'm sure that the borough mayors, the borough assembly, and the borough attorneys got to know her very well. And then as everybody got their little pieces of chocolate here, when she would come into a meeting, she would have a bag in one hand of Dove chocolates, and in the other hand, she'd have her stool. And the reason she had her stool was because the seats of the conference room were too high and her feet didn't reach the floor. So she had to get her stool there to support her feet. And then everybody got 2 pieces of Dove's chocolate. And it did work to kind of mellow things out and help with the eating there. I'll miss Roberta a lot because about every week or two she'd call and just to talk. And we'd talk about the things with the board. She'd talk about just things in general. And I'll definitely miss that part of her. She was not, well, she's being on the board is going to miss her from being on the board, but more than the board, this community is going to miss her not being on the board. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you,
That was short.
Next explanation, listen to you. Thank you, Ralph. Rachel? Our good mayor, Rachel Lord.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob, and thanks, everybody. This is an incredible space to walk up to. And I'm sorry that I was late, but I'm also really glad that I was, because what a scene to walk up to. I moved to Homer and I got a job working for Cook Inlet Keeper for Bob with Sue. Shortly after I moved here in the fall of 2008. And working at Inlet Keeper, I quickly met Roberta through her role at the Kachemak Bay Conservation Society. I could not fathom, I still frankly cannot fathom how that woman did not use a computer or email. And that was kind of one of the first things that I was kind of like, I'm what? Well, like, we're not, okay, and I did. And I would send an email to Robert to make sure she got the things or make sure that they were printed out when we engaged on different issues. Over the time of working at Inlet Keeper, it became really apparent to me. It was my first time living in a community as an adult, not in school, not in a transient way. And learning about how community works. Where does my water come from? How do decisions get made? And I started just keeping an eye on the city and on the Planning Commission, and became very clear that a lot of the decisions that were being made and a lot of the developments that were happening and a lot of the directions for the community were happening through decisions being made by this, to me at the time, very mysterious group called the Planning Commission. And that was very clearly a lever of power and of influence. Roberta served on our planning commission here in Homer for over a decade, not using email or computers, which is phenomenal. Roberta also, for the last several years, Roberta has been the only woman on the planning commission. She is represented with a strong voice, the natural beauty of this place, the importance of our habitat, the importance of our water quality, the importance of what the quality of life is that we all get from this space, that I think, and I was just thinking about how Nina was talking about what would this place be like without Roberta, that I think we could have kind of taken for granted. In a very community of Homer sort of way, over time, my life I couldn't actually believe how many places Roberta intersected. When I started having kids and going to the midwives and then learning, like they like riding horses too. And I would really like to get my kid riding horses, and I actually miss riding horses. And then we were doing pony club and spending a lot of time at the horse park. And lo and behold, there's Roberta. She is actually president of the Equestrian Association. I had no idea. And to be able to kind of piece all of these threads together and know one another in such ways, I think is a testament to how many different hats Roberta wore and how tireless she was in her passion and her vision for what community is and how we all can be living a better life and protecting our environment for the earth and also for one another. And I did just write a few little notes because I had Rachel. That's how Roberta I would answer the phone. She'd go, Rachel. I'd say, yes, Roberta. And it was always really focused. She didn't call to talk about, for me, she didn't ever, I don't think, ever call to talk at length about multiple different issues. She would call me to talk about my emotional connection with my horses and some of the challenges I was having, and to share stories from her past and her experiences with her horses over time. She didn't want to talk about anything. That was it. And then it was done. She would call to talk about the harbor expansion. She would call to talk about challenges with the Planning Commission. They were always very, very focused and very thoughtful and very intentional. That is how I knew Roberta, as a focused, thoughtful, intentional, and passionate person. I think I will just end by saying when Susie, Ben's mom, died many years ago, I remember being shocked that the sun actually kept coming up. I couldn't believe that this person was gone and the sun still rose. And it did. And I think about that with Roberta as well. And I think about how this community continues to move forward. The sun does continue to rise. And I hope that for all of us, we can remember that Roberta left a legacy that we will always hold in our hearts. And it's also incredibly important for all of us to participate, to engage, to find our vision and our passion, and to not be afraid to pursue that, to connect with one another, to ask questions, sometimes hard questions, and to not let go of what you think what that vision and what that passion is for you. So I thank you all. Robert, thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Over a decade on the Planning Commission. Whew, can't even imagine that. Now we have an ode to Roberta. Who's doing that? Born in 49. It's a song. And where will that be played? Okay.
Born in the summer of 49 by the Great Lakes Superior line. 2 harbors, fields, and northern skies. She chased her dreams with open eyes. A nurse with hands that healed with grace. She heard one truth in a quiet place. Don't wait for someday, don't wait too long. So she packed her life into work and song. She flew through fear and danced through fire. Found love atop the snowy spires. She gave her heart to the land and the bay, and lived full out every single day. With skies above and earth below, she sowed more joy than we'll ever know. And every dawn she'd softly say, here's to another day in paradise. She came to Alaska wild and wide, with skis on her feet and stars in her stride. She lifted kids who couldn't stand, skiing backwards hand in hand. She found her partner in the crowd. He lifted her up when the band played loud. She said, I want to hike the Chilkoot Trail and float the Yukon wild. He said, let's go, and they both just smiled. She flew through fear and danced through fire, found love atop the snowy spires. She gave her heart to the land and the bay, and lived full out every single day. With skies above and earth below, she sowed more joy than we'll ever know. And every dawn she'd softly say, here's to another day in paradise. From horse trails in France to rivers wide, from Homer's shores to the big sky ride, she fought for trees, for parks, for peace, for a world where wild things never cease. She served, she stood, she made her stand, with Robert's steady, loving hand. She left behind no empty space, only love and light in every place. From cottonwood groves to mountain snow, her spirit's in the winds that blow. In every cause, in every friend, her fearless joy will never end. She flew through fear and danced through fire, found love atop the snowy spires. She gave her heart to the land and the bay, and lived full out every single day. With skies above and earth below, she sowed more joy than we'll ever know. And every dawn will softly say, here's to another day in paradise.
That was great. And now I think we're going to have some live music with Willie and Cindy and Kathy.
Sing along.
It's a sing-along.
Yes, it is. And that's a hard act to follow, I'll tell you. Hi, Kathy.
You want to play under the awning here so you stay dry?
What's that?
You want to play under the awning here? So
Yeah,
you stay dry?
yeah. Since it still seems to be weeping.
You got a microphone.
All right. I guess I got to tell a story while they're setting things up, you know. Everybody thinks Roberta was something. I knew she was something, except one time I had to go take some instruction in Anchorage, and I went to a Mexican restaurant. When I flew home that day, I felt horrible. And she says, well, we're going to Land's End for dinner. You got to feel good. Well, I got through about half of that meal, and I went, I feel horrible. I'm going home. And when she came home, she starts poking my belly, and she says, does that hurt? I went, damn, girl, don't do that. You're a nurse. You're not supposed to be doing that. So I took some aspirin and went to bed. The next morning, it's still hurting. We called the hospital. They said, well, you better bring him on down. Well, we used to have a doctor here in town that was somewhat, I don't want to say his name. But... So I'm laying down in there, and he says, we'll take an x-ray, and we'll say, yeah, We got to operate on you right away. And Roberta says, well, you know, we thought it was food poisoning because he was in a Mexican restaurant yesterday. And this doctor says, what do you got against Mexicans? So you can guess who that doctor was. Anyhow, we're going to sing a few songs. And these are ones that Roberta would always sing. At ceremonies like this, or when we lost a horse or something. So I'm very grateful that these folks are going to do a little sing along with us. Thank you.
Step podium.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mossy Culture. And it's all these wonderful things that Roberta meant to everybody and did. I don't know how she ever had time for writing at all. I know Roberta just writing with her from the early days, from the 80s. We wrote a lot. We did so many writing things and cowgirl things. And she was always there for me whenever I had a horse problem, and especially when a horse passed away. She would come and we had a ritual. She came and said, you got to sing happy trails to you. And also when we would be riding up and down the beaches and in the mountains and up the rivers, she always had this favorite song, Don't Fence Me In. And I can't remember a single time that we weren't riding that song didn't get sung by all of us, rain or shine. Sometimes in mid-gallop, but she was always singing this song. And also Happy Trails. So I wanted to share with you how much I loved her. And she meant so much to me.
All right, thanks. Well, in the spirit of Roberta's rebellious spirit, I'm not sure what lyrics you guys have, but this song I used to sing about 40 something years ago. So it starts out, Wildcat Kelly was looking mighty pale, standing by the sheriff's side. When that sheriff said, I'm taking you to jail, Wildcat raised his head and cried, oh, give me land, lots of land on the starry skies above. Don't fence me in, I'll ride through the wide open spaces that I love. Don't fence me in, let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in. Just turn me loose and let me wander over yonder where the river runs. On my cayuse and let me straddle my old saddle underneath the mountain to ride to the range where the west commences. Gaze at the moon until I lose my senses. I can't look at hogs and I can't stand fences, so don't fence me in.
You can sing along too. The words are in your program. So this next one is for Roberta. So let's all sing to this gal, eh?
This is called Happy Trails, and I have to be honest, I never knew this song, so I've been learning it. I never knew it, so. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you till we meet again. Some trails are happy, others are blue. It's the way you ride the trail that counts. Here's a happy one for you. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing the song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you till we meet again.
Oh, you're welcome, Robert. Thanks for asking.
See if I can find my way through this myriad of microphones. I beat Bob up here. Now he's going to come up and smack me in the back of the head. Anyhow, I don't know if anybody's got anything to say out there. We got some wireless mics, but I know the food is getting cold. I think Chris and Amy were going to grab some mics that maybe we could carry on for 15 minutes. If anybody else wanted to say something, just raise your hand and they will come by. And if nobody has anything to say, let's eat.
Here's the microphone.
Well, I just want to say that Roberta was a very humble person, and she would be totally astonished to know this large gathering is meeting here to honor her.
All right.
You can stand right next to me there.
Oh, went up there.
Keep it short.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, she was everywhere where you guys said, but she was a Northwoods girl and a North Shore girl. And to see how Roberta developed in life, you just have to go to the edge of Lake Superior and see those rocky crags on the shore, that cold weather, those freezing cold winters. And, you'll be glad when you get over across the bay and see that beautiful country over there. And you know why it brought her here. I was at the bank the other day, and my kid, who's 5 years old, has this jar of coins that everybody's giving him, dollar bills, and it was getting too big for his life. And if anyone ever broke into the cabin and took his money, he wouldn't live for it. And so I says, you got to put this in the bank. And he says, no, I don't. And he says, why would I want to do something like that when I can have this money with me? And I says, Roberta Highland, on the day you were born, started a bank account for you. And, she wanted you to start saving. And what you got to learn from her is how to save things in life. And so we went down to the bank and he put that money in there. She adopted me, the time I showed up in this town. I stayed at their place out of Galliano's in Fritz Creek, took care of their horses, their dogs. Every point in my life, she was checking up on me and watching out for me. And Robert was right there by their side. And I hauled that gal all the way to the headwaters of the Sheep River Canyon. And she was to the point where she was just riding the trails here and not going very far. But she says, I trust you, Mark, to take her out there. And it was one of the last good places where her and Robert went across the seas to ride horses, where she got out in those hills. And she didn't really want to do it, was a little comfortable doing it. But she went out there with a bunch of us and we had a good time. And of course, she was right there singing her songs. Thank you. Thank you, Roberta. Thank you, Robert.
We found all those chicken eggs that got away from you.
I had more stories, but I'm cutting it short.
I know you're all waiting to eat. This is something very short. One of Roberta's favorite tunes was the Ashokan Farewell, and I wrote some words to it. You've gone on to another place, a whole new world of being. And start again. You've gone on to another place, a whole new world of being. And someday we'll all be together again, where time and space have traded places. There's no end and no beginning, and the good deeds you've done will light up your way. Who could have known it would be so soon? But here we are singing to thank you for leading the way on this great wheel of life that just keeps on turning until we return to this earth once again.
Well, it's a sad day for the Homer community, as now it's time to say goodbye to Roberta, but oh, I feel the love here. I'm sure you all do. My 40-year friendship with Roberta inspired me in so many ways because she was a mentor to me. Her encouragement has kept me motivated. Her excited appreciation for my grassroots activism style community interactive art instigating and parades felt like a gift. She would call me, Mavis! To excitedly marvel at the times, and donated to help pay for the expenses. And by that, I mean actually writing a check, putting it in an envelope, addressing it, putting a stamp on it, take it to the post office, and mail it. In a world of digital banking, this always seemed so fun to me. But she touched lots of people in lives that way, and I'm seeing clearly today how far-reaching her impact was. I used to tease her, you have a short rope, but you throw a wide loop. There is a quote from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said and they'll forget what you need, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Roberta always made me feel like I was really someone. And I think she did this to everyone. But she always made me feel like I was seen. And she liked me. I will miss that about her. She really liked me. And she loved the burning basket. She attended every year. She said, must go, like keeping an appointment. And sometimes she would be holding a donation jar to help pay for the costs of the event, because that's what she did. You may notice that over on the table is a wreath that I created called Ribbons of Remembrance for our remarkable Roberta. All are invited to be a part of this act of loving remembrance by tying a ribbon on it in her memory. And I will make sure that this basket is placed on the upcoming burning basket. And so also feel free to help during the construction if you want to in her memory. Roberta was a small woman, but she left some big footprints for us to now fill. She has passed from our sight, but she will always be in that shaft of light beaming through the clouds from the heart of the spirit world, with her muscles flexed, unwavering, on a mission like she did every day of her life. Thank you, Roberta, my friend.
One last thing I'd like to say here, because I know we have to all eat now, and she'd say, Masi, let's eat. Anyway, this is a quick note to Roberta. I hope she's listening. Dear Roberta, since I got so used to calling you at least twice a week for almost 40 years, I can't just stop talking to you now. I know you're up there galumphing around in Calypso, singing songs and trying to save heaven from the bad guys, but a couple of things I want you to know in case I forgot to tell you before. Please don't fall off Calypso as you're galloping across the clouds. We have enough earthquakes lately. And I hope your new heavenly pooch is a bit smaller and less unruly than all those big rescue mutts that keep yanking you along the trails. Happy trails to you until we meet again, Marcy.
Hi, my name's George. I'm Nina's brother. I never got a dog, nor did I get the George treatment. Maybe I should have, but I just wanted to say I met Roberta about 45 years ago. Did a couple of skiing trips on her. But I always remember her in those early days as a woman with phenomenal energy, just barreling straight down the mountain. I had one with a big heart, and I had one thing to say about her, one word. She was a giant fireball of endless energy going. Thank you, Roberta. And thank you, Robert.
I think if Roberta was here, she would tell me to go around and make sure we had new members for the Conservation Society. So I am doing that. Everybody who is not current, you better get current. And we need some new board members from Roberta. That was really well done.
So, Penny, I was going to get up here and say the same thing, or I'd have nightmares tonight. You know, the Conservation Society, she lived that. And I did a lot of typing for her and sent a lot of emails. But that's an organization that has to live on and get young people involved in the environmental fight. So today it's all that more important. All right, enough talking. Colette wanted to say something here, and then we should. I think there was some hot food a couple hours ago, but I don't know what it's like now. So anyhow, one more person, and then we can go eat. This woman used to fly 747s for
Not
United.
747.
Oh, come on.
Get your airplanes right. Anyway, so that lovely song Robert and I created, and the first version that you heard was what Robert wanted, and the second version is what I wanted. And the second version is something you can dance to. We all know that Roberta was a little compromised at the end and wasn't able to dance, but she loved to dance. In fact, they met the first day dancing. So if you can join me, I would like for you to dance this last song.
Hold on a second, Josh. Hold on.
She's going to get out there and dance.
I told Robert that I would make everybody dance. And on instructions. Okay, ready?
Born in the summer of 49 by the Great Lakes Superior Line. To harbors, fields, and northern skies, she chased her dreams with open eyes. A nurse with hands that healed with grace. She heard one truth in a quiet place. Don't wait for someday, don't wait too long. So she packed her life in a working song. She flew through fear and danced through fire. Found love atop the snowy spires. She gave her heart to the land and the bay and lived full out every single day. The skies above and earth below. She sowed more joy than we'll ever know. And every dawn she'd softly say, here's to another day in paradise. She came to Alaska wild and wide, with skis on her feet and stars in her stride. She lifted kids who couldn't stand, skiing backwards hand in hand. She found her partner in the crowd. He lifted her up when the band played loud. She said, I want to hike the Chilkoot Trail and float the Yukon wild. He said, let's go, and they both just smiled. She flew through fear and danced through fire. Found love atop the snowy spires. She gave her heart to the land and the bay and lived full out every single day, with skies above and earth below. She sowed more joy than we'll ever know. And every dawn she'd softly say, here's to another day in paradise. From horse trails in France to rivers wide, from Homer's shores to the big sky ride. She fought for trees, for parks, for peace, for a world where wild things never cease. She served, she stood, she made her stand with Robert's steady, loving hand. She left behind no empty space, only love and light in every place, from cottonwood groves to mountain snow. Her spirit's in the winds that blow, in every cause, in every friend. Her fearless joy will never end. She flew through fear and danced through fire. Found love atop a snowy spires. She gave her heart to the land and the bay and lived full out every single day, with skies above and earth below. She sowed more joy than we'll ever know. And every dawn we'll softly say, here's to another day in paradise.
All right, that's it. That's all, folks.
Oh, yeah.